Since mechanical clocks emerged, I think, from the automation of the bells, these weren't initially devices which showed you the time on a face with a pointer. They were simply ways of regularly striking the hours in a predictable and mechanically controllable way. They weren't especially accurate or precise. What we see happening in the 1300s and 1400s is the construction of the clock face, or dial, as it starts to be called, which comes from the Latin word for day, dies. And these dials, which showed you the hours that all could see simultaneously, become a kind of publicly verifiable standard. And one might want to compare them with the publicly verifiable standards of other measures of weights and volumes, which govern the medieval grain trades, of lengths, which govern the medieval cloth trades. Riots broke out throughout medieval Europe whenever publicly verifiable standards seemed to be being corrupted or exploited by those in power. And time took on that quality. It became a public commodity which one should publicly defend. And the appearance of the clock face, which all could read simultaneously, in that sense takes on something of the value of a universal, verifiable, reliable standard. For example, it was in workers' interest sometimes to demand longer working hours. When wages fell, they demanded the right to work extra hours, as we would say, asking for overtime, so that they could bring their wage rates up to levels which were acceptable. Or they could demand the right to see exactly how long they'd been working by looking at the mechanically driven clock towers. So the appearance of the public clock dial certainly begins to change the mutual understanding of public standards and public measurements in medieval culture. The clock always stays as a site of contest, but and that's for several reasons. It increasingly seems to be what drives people. It has the power, and we are time's subjects. But it can be used in many different ways. It's an object lesson. Something which begins as being treated with enormous suspicion becomes domesticated. It's brought into the home. It can provide resources for workers' struggles, at least as much as owners. And it can become an objective standard to which all people can appeal and about which all people can agree. So as time consciousness, mechanical time consciousness, enters European thinking, yes, you can see the way in which the clock itself becomes friend and resource.